Now to the disturbing allegations contained in a lawsuit filed by a woman who says she was groomed, sexually abused, and impregnated twice by the dean of her Chicago high school. And now she's speaking out. NBC5's Christian Farr with the story.
I was just kind of going by what he was telling me and just kind of doing what I was told to do by him.
It took several years, but this former Chicago public school student now has the courage to come forward and put a spotlight on the sexual abuse she says she suffered at Little Village Lawndale High School.
She was abused by a dean who was in charge of disciplining students and keeping students safe at that school.
This morning, attorneys representing the 25-year-old former student filed a lawsuit on her behalf against CPS and the former dean of students at the school, Brian Crowder, who has been charged with criminal sexual abuse in her case. When she was 15, attorneys say Crowder groomed and sexually abused their client for several years.
He impregnated her twice. He coerced her into 2 abortions.
While still a student, the young woman told a teacher about the abuse, but says nothing came from that conversation.
Even though I did ask her not to say anything, I feel like she should have. You know, it was her job to do so.
In response to the lawsuit, a CPS spokesperson said, "We take seriously our responsibility to ensure all employees act in the best interest of our students." The district does not comment on pending investigations or litigation.
And I just want to help any young girl out there that's maybe going through this to know that it's not okay.
Attorneys for the young woman say they're in contact with a former CPS investigator who says there is a pattern of abuse at that school involving other teachers and more students. Christian Farr, NBC5 News.
Yesterday, we filed a lawsuit against Chicago Public Schools and a former dean, Brian Crowder, for the sexual abuse that our client Jane Doe experienced from 2013 to 2015-16 throughout her high school. Now, this story is going to anger you because our client was failed twice. She was abused by a dean who was in charge of disciplining students and keeping students safe at that school. But she was also failed by a teacher who knew of the abuse and failed to report it. Our client met this dean through school who was going around getting the Snapchat usernames from various students, which is already a big red flag. He was communicating with these students through Snapchat, and then from there he preyed on our client and began this sexual abuse that lasted years. He impregnated her twice. He coerced her into 2 abortions. He told her he loved her. He told her he wanted to have a family with her when she was an adult. At some point, she couldn't take it anymore. She couldn't take the emotional abuse. She went to a teacher who knew something was wrong. It just didn't add up, and confided in her, asked what she should do. The teacher put that burden of what to do next back on our client's lap. The abuse continued, and continued after our client left high school. Through our investigation, it's unfortunately been revealed that this wasn't an isolated incident. This wasn't an isolated teacher. This specific school, the Greater Lawndale High School, had several other teachers and administrators that were grooming on a regular basis different students, sexually abusing them, whether it was while they were in high school or in some cases 3 or 4 or 5 days after they graduated. Many reports were made. A lot of these teachers, including the dean, were friends with each other. We've learned that they played basketball together in the morning. We have the understanding that they were laughing about this, that this was just part of some game. And it's unacceptable. But unfortunately, the history of sexual abuse within the Chicago public school system isn't a recent phenomenon. This thing has been going on for decades. There's a lot of reasons as to why it still goes on, and there's certain things that have to be done to put an end to it. I think we'll just have a couple people ask a couple questions. I think that's the best way to do this.
Why are you coming forward? What do you hope happens in the future with this? This has to be very difficult.
The main goal is for other girls to speak up if anything like this is happening to them or has happened to them. I don't think it's fair for us to feel the way we do. And I just want to help any young girl out there that's maybe going through this to know that it's not okay and it is okay for them to come forward and speak up.
What are you feeling right now in terms of looking back on all of the things that are alleged in this lawsuit? How are you feeling today? And is it a feeling of anger, frustration? If you could put your feelings maybe into a few words.
It's a lot of emotions, for sure. A lot of anger, sadness. I was just scared and ashamed and embarrassed. So I never said anything, I was just kind of going by what he was telling me and just kind of doing what I was told to do by him and what was right and what was wrong. And I just bottled a lot inside for years. And now that I spoke up about it, it did make me feel a little better because, I'm finally saying something, but it's still hard. It still brings all those emotions back.
And that teacher who didn't report it, as you mentioned, can you just share with us a little about that? Because you did try to say something. And to me, it sounds like you're the true whistleblower.
So when I went to her about it, at first I did ask her to just keep it between her and I because that was my first time actually going to somebody after it had already happened for so long. I just kind of needed some guidance. I didn't know what to do. Even though I did ask her not to say anything, I feel like she should have. It was her job to do so.